Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Drive Pink Dialogue. I'm your host, Scotty. I'm here with my co-host, Saur. And today we are talking about Inter Miami's 1-1 draw against DC United last night. We had a chance to review the game. We came up with some awards. We're going to do all that good stuff tonight. But before all of that, Saur, how are you feeling on this fine Sunday early evening?
I have the Sunday scaries, so let's just let's just get straight into it because I don't want to talk about my day. I do not want the week to start. It's going to be a very long week ahead. We have the Orlando game coming up, which is another scary thing, but I just want to be done with this 1 hour conversation or 1 hour odd conversation and then look into the next week. How are you feeling?
I haven't been feeling great, so I'm also ready to make this a 1 hour in and out kind of conversation. We will still do awards and all that good stuff. I actually feel like it's a little bit of a shame because if we were feeling ultra energetic and ultra focused, I think there was a lot to talk about if we wanted to get into like the ultra deep minutia of this game and some of the performances, but I don't know if either of us are in that mood right now, so we're going to take the lazy way out and just do it as if we would normally. I am thinking around the team, and I think the only real question marks around the team are when is Matteo Silvetti going to make his debut or at least be eligible to be on the roster? 1. Is Messi going to play on Wednesday? 2. Is Jordi Alba going to play on Wednesday? 3. Aside from that, I don't think there's any question marks going on around the team. And those are 3 questions that we don't have any answers to. So, is there anything else you want to talk about before we dive into this game?
No, is there any chance that this team might have pulled off a Gonzalo POV transfer?
No.
Okay, so that's the last thing that I had on my mind. Rest of it sounds good. I think I can answer your questions in one word each. Silvetti available, maybe the weekend. Messi probably going to play. Jordi Alba, not so much. There you go.
Well, again, none of those are questions we have real answers to. We can just speculate. And
Exactly.
I think your speculation could be spot on. I kind of think Messi will play on Wednesday. I kind of don't expect Alba to play on Wednesday. And I think Silvetti might actually be another week and a half or two, just knowing how long it takes to get the paperwork done. Okay, let's start off this game with some context because you and I have on this very podcast many times in the past called Inter Miami the deepest team in MLS history. And I 100% believe that was true if you went back to the 2024 season. On the last day of the season, I thought they had the most depth of any team in the history of this league in terms of the quality. And what I meant by that was the best player in Inter Miami was better in Lionel Messi than any team's best player ever. But so was the 8th best player in Inter Miami, and so was the 12th best player on Inter Miami, so was the 18th best player in Inter Miami. It was better than any 18th best player on any team ever. And then all the way to like 24. Like it was very deep. This year, not so much. We know they lost a lot of guys in the offseason. They brought in a bunch of new signings. And even sort of as we got in Alan Obando, which was March 25th when he officially signed, we felt like this team was complete. At least I felt like this team was complete. I felt they had all their bases covered, and I felt like this was a really deep team that had 2 squads that could go compete with anyone, really, and that it would just be a matter of, how are we going to rotate, how are we going to manage this? But that the talent was there. Since that March 25th date, when they added Alan Obando, they sold Robert Taylor, Julian Gressel, Leo Alfonso, Federico Redondo, David Martinez. And so it doesn't actually feel as deep. And the only addition to this point was Rodrigo de Paul. And so they lost a lot of players without adding much. And so basically that second team worth of quality, half of it disappeared because Inter Miami moved them on and did not replace them. That was an intentional strategy. It's clear Javier Mascherano did not want a bunch of guys. Well, he didn't want to rotate a lot, and then he didn't want to have to deal with a bunch of guys that weren't playing a ton of minutes. And so a lot of those guys who he didn't project to play a lot got moved on. We have talked about this over the course of the season as maybe a frustration of ours. We've talked about it as something we wouldn't have done if we were in charge. But ultimately, we can understand why a coach wouldn't want 5 senior team level players that aren't really getting any minutes. It can be a locker room problem. And for a first year coach, you can understand why he didn't want to deal with that. And by he, I mean Mascherano. But when you're going to go into a full rotation game like you did last night, well, you're going to have a little bit of a lapse in quality because those 5 guys that they didn't replace, well, they would have started last night and the team would have been much better for it. Now, that doesn't mean the whole strategy is terrible. There's plenty of reasons why you do what you do, but the pros of not having to sort of manage those guys from a off the field minutes perspective are sort of on the other side weighed into the fact that when you have a rotation game, you don't have as talented players as you normally would. So I think it's important for us to start this game by saying this is not the B team that Inter Miami was playing with last year when they had to do heavy and full rotation.
Can I add a little bit more context to that? I completely agree with everything you've just said, and there's definitely been a drop-off in quality in terms of the second 11 that Inter Miami can put out compared to last season. Obviously, the goals and assists that some of the players had produced in Matias Rojas and Robert Taylor and Leo Campana, in Leo Alfonso, they were crucial in certain moments in games to actually win us the 3 points instead of that 1 point, or that 1 point instead of 0 points. And we haven't necessarily been able to replace that, and quality has definitely gone down. But there's another element to this. The players that were on the pitch yesterday and the players that are treated as the so-called B team have not actually been utilized and grown under Javier Mascherano the way some of the players did again under Tata Martino. A lot of the players are not ready to play 490 minutes. They're not in game rhythm. They don't have the chemistry. And we haven't been able to extract the best. We haven't been able to optimize the B team as much as we should have. If some of the players yesterday had played on a more regular basis, if they were surrounded by players who, if they played together from time to time, if they played with some of the A team players from time to time, I think the result could have been slightly different yesterday and we would have got a lot more out of it. But there's another conversation to be had about how Javier Mascherano is able to extract the best out of not just the second 11, but also the starting 11. And there's been a drop off in quality in that terms as well. So it all compounds. You lose some of the quality that has gone out through transfers. And then you also lose the quality because the coach is not able to get the best out of each player on this roster. And that just adds to the issues. Now we can, I think, get into the game and understand what the context behind that was.
No, if I had more time and more than 24 hours in the day, I wanted to go back and look at how many minutes David Ruiz had at this point last season. I wanted to see how many minutes Ryan Saylor had at this point. What I can tell you is by looking at their final numbers, they are not on pace to hit those or even close to those. And then there's a lot of minutes that kind of got subtracted from last year's team. If you look at Campana, Rojas, Diego Gomez, Redondo, etc. So yes, they have not gotten much of an opportunity this year. And so I don't think it should be any surprise that guys that haven't played a ton this year, Ryan Saylor, David Ruiz, even a Toto Aviles, who has not played much lately, Noah Allen at left back, Fafa Picault in the starting 11. Fafa Picault is a striker. It is understandable that they wouldn't come in and light the world on fire, especially when they're surrounded by other guys that also haven't played a ton, that also aren't in great form. If you sort of drop them into a single moment with the rest of the A team, I think they would look much better. But when you're asking everyone to come off cold, a lot of guys playing in different positions, a lot of guys that haven't played a ton of minutes, a lot of guys that haven't played a lot of minutes lately. I think what we saw last night was expected in a lot of ways.
And I said this in the pregame show before we even started. I said that there's going to be a lack of sharpness. It's going to look poor quality. I thought DC would be similar to Inter Miami, given that they had a lot of injuries as well, but they were a lot better on the ball. But what I saw was disjointed, was uh, lackadaisical, it was slow, and it was expected. For me, it was expected, and I completely knew going into this game that it would be a poor quality game. And we talked about how the game's going to actually change once our better players come on, and it did. But by that time, I think it was a little too late, and DC were actually putting together some good patterns of play to hurt us in certain moments. So I expected this, and it wasn't too much of a surprise for me. Disappointment, absolutely, but it was understandable why the team performed the way they did.
And again, I just, maybe the takeaway is here. They have less depth on the roster and they use it less over the course of this season. So I'm not necessarily blaming Javier Mascherano for that, other than the fact that there are trade-offs to the decisions he's
It's a
made.
choice.
And one of the trade-offs was when you come to games like this, you have guys that aren't really ready to make the game for you. We think back to last year's game at Philadelphia. Remember, Philadelphia wasn't a playoff team last year. We went on the road, and it was a very similar game to this. We had to start Kramaski and Ruiz in the midfield. Leo Alfonso comes on and gets that 95th minute winner when we're down 2 men. But it's like because those guys were in strong enough form to compete, and because you had guys off the bench that could make an impact, you didn't have to play Lionel Messi and some of your big names to get a result there. And we just didn't have that in the tank this evening. And of course, it's soccer, so you only need one or two things to go your way before you end up on the winning side and all is sunshine and roses. Okay, let's get into it. First moment I thought that was really relevant is the goal. 13th minute. It's a corner for DC United, and Inter Miami clears it. And Matty Peltola, the defensive midfielder for DC United, does this thing that I watch teams do all the time, and it never works, where everyone's retreating, and the midfielder just kind of plops it back into the box. And I'm always so frustrated because it feels like a waste of possession. Your guys are almost always going to be offside. They're not in a position to actually one-touch it into the goal because it's not a good angle. And yet, the one time I think I've ever seen it really work was last night. Matty Peltola just kind of bloops the ball back into the box. Jackson Hopkins with a nice body off for Toto Aviles takes one really clean touch and then smashes it into that left side of the net and gives DC United a 1-goal lead. That was, a phenomenal play from Jackson Hopkins. I do want to give him his credit. I did not say nice things about him in the pregame show, and it absolutely came back to bite me. So congratulations, Jackson. That was a great shot, a great moment, and he was the captain last night, so I'm sure he was on fire about it.
You clearly haven't learned from your Luis Muriel
I know.
mistake.
I was thinking that.
You better not say anything during the Orlando game on Wednesday, I swear.
I was thinking that as that happened yesterday. I thought it was like a fluky kind of play. And I understand someone wanting Toto Aviles to maybe body him off a little bit better, but it didn't feel that kind of thing just happens sometimes, really. And
I think Hopkins
they're probably
did
not going to
really
be put in
well.
this situation again.
Yeah, Hopkins did really well in shielding the ball a little bit, but the bounce was very favorable. The double bounce was even more favorable, and he was able to get off a really good shot. I don't know what else Toto Aviles could have done. Maybe get more on goal side and prevent him from getting the shot off. But honestly, from that angle, it's very hard to get a good shot off. And Jackson Hopkins connected very, very plumb with that ball, and it was in the corner. Not much you could have done. I watched it a couple of times, and I wanted to blame Aviles for it, but honestly, it'll be very harsh if you do. I think it was just one of those where the ball falls favorably for the striker and it's coming out of a corner and everyone else is going out of position. You're sort of caught on the back foot, and then the striker gets off a really good shot. Happens sometimes.
Yeah, and I think if you did want to, point blame on anyone, it would be on Aviles earlier in the play.
Yeah.
I do think he's the one that keeps Hopkins on side, so maybe he needs to be half a step quicker out of the box. But again, we would be really nitpicking to put that one on Aviles. It's just a really nice play and kind of a fluky bloop by Peltola and a nice finish by Jackson Hopkins. Not a fluke. 15 minutes later, Yosei Kojima, who I really like as a player. Kojima, thank you. They overload our right side of the pitch, and he is just wide open down that left side. The ball finds him. He gets a one-on-one with the keeper, and he fires a really nice shot into that side netting. And Rocco makes an excellent save on Kojima's shot. And I thought that was representative of the worst of Inter Miami last night. I thought Lujan, he plays very narrow, but it's almost as if he lost track of Kojima on the outside. And again, it was like the team got disoriented by an overload on the right side. They all moved too far over, and then they weren't able to recover on a quick switch. And that quick switch is something every professional at this level is able to complete. So I thought that was pretty poor defending in that moment.
It wasn't even like a super quick switch. There was just so much space for Kojima to run into. The ball just had to be played in that area. And I'm not a defensive coach by any means, so I want to understand whether this was an actual mistake from Lujan or is this what actually someone does when you're defending and unfortunately have an overload on that side of the pitch. Because Lujan gets attracted to the ball. He obviously sees Kijima. I think he sees Kijima in that space, but he makes the decision of going for the ball carrier rather than the player in space, because obviously if he had drifted out and tried to protect Kojima, then the ball carrier would have a lot of space to just run into. So I don't know what the mindset is going into that and what the correct choice would be, and I would love for somebody to clarify that. But I do think Lujan gets called in too narrow and there's no cover in behind either. So if that's happening, then perhaps somebody from the midfield or the wing back, in this instance, Cello Egan, should be the one covering Kojima, but there's just so much space for him. He gets off a really good shot, and I thought it was bound for goal, absolutely in the corner, but Rocco pulls off a great save. Thank God for that save. Otherwise, this game would have been really difficult to come back into. But it wasn't just once that happened. Kijima was able to get the better of Weigand and Lujan, sometimes at the same time, multiple times. And I thought that was definitely a vulnerability on this team.
Yeah, and I think those two plays kind of represented this first half. Inter Miami did not do much going forward. And then they were kind of beat going the other way a couple times. So I thought Cello was particularly poor in this respect. I thought Lujan had some really poor moments. I thought Aviles and Ryan Saylor maybe half a step better in terms of overall positioning, but then they had some sort of mental mistakes in individual moments. So it was pretty poor defensively across the first half. Inter Miami, I thought, was really bad in the midfield, and they were unable to hold the ball at all. And so that made their offense virtually they had no offense because their two forwards were just making runs in behind, and no one was even close to a position to put the ball into them. It was very quick turnovers from Inter Miami. Kramaski had a couple, David Ruiz had a couple, Segovia had a couple, where they were maybe trying to take shots going forward to try and get Allende in behind, trying to get Fafa in behind, but they were just never going to come off because those guys don't have the quality to make that happen. And neither Fafa or Tadeo Allende were sort of coming back to help the build up in any way. So
Allende had 8 passes the entire game.
Yeah, it was very dysfunctional. It was very dysfunctional. And on that note, they played 4 different formations in that game. They started out with a front 3. They went to a back 4 with Lujan at right back, Aviles and Ryan Saylor as the center back partnership. They ended up going back to a back 3 at one point, and then they went back to a back 4 with Aviles stepping into the midfield, and it was Lujan and Saylor as the back and Cello as the right back. So it was very dysfunctional, and by the way, all of that happened in the first half. So new formation, new players, guys that haven't played a ton, guys playing out of position, guys being asked to play next to players they haven't played with, and meanwhile, we're changing the formation every 10 minutes. It is not a recipe for success, and I thought that's exactly what it looked like.
And I understand exactly what Javier Mascherano was trying to do in changing those formations. So what he saw in that first few minutes, 15 minutes, whenever he made the first change, was Inter Miami was playing on 3 different islands. You had the back line who was trying to play out from the back. Then you had the midfield who was quite far apart. There was nobody in the middle. And I thought Segovia would be that person, but there was nobody doing the Busquets role where they're connecting the back line to the midfield. nobody coming for the ball, nobody asking for the ball in their feet. Everyone was making runs away from the ball, which sort of extends the back line and the midfield even further, creating two separate islands. And then you've got two bozos at the other end of the field who are just literally making runs, even when you know that your players do not have the balls or the passing capability to find you. You need to be coming in, or at least one of you needs to be coming in to connect the midfield with the final third, with both of them doing the exact same thing, at least in the first half. And it just looked like Inter Miami was playing three different games. Javier Mascherano saw that, realized that it's not working. He tried to create overloads in the middle. He went back to a back four. I think first he put Lujan in the middle. He wanted to have that one extra body who can perhaps connect.
He put Lujan at right back, and he put Cello in the middle.
Cello in the middle. And he doesn't realize that none of these players that he's putting into the midfield can actually hold the ball to save their lives. So the issue still persists because now you're closer together, but you're still not able to hold the ball because you don't have the quality. And DC, as soon as they press a little bit, it's a turnover and you can't get the ball out of difficult positions. So then he goes back to a back three, has the same issue. He tries it differently this time with Aviles in the middle, going back to a back four. And Aviles isn't necessarily that good at keeping the ball either. And that's why you saw that back and forth change in formations. It was very simple, but it was understandable because you don't have the personnel to play that.
And like you said, it wasn't just the quality, it was also the cohesion. There was way too much space in between the lines, and very few MLS players have the talent to consistently break two lines like what was being asked of or required of by our offense last night in Fafa and Tadeo Allende. So very disjointed. And again, we go back to how we started this episode talking about the depth. And you think about Robert Taylor, he's the type of forward that isn't making runs in behind. He's coming back and collecting the ball if need be. Julian Gressel is a guy that can be a facilitator and a connector. And, in the midfield, Redondo is a guy that can be very ball secure. So we talked about how it's decisions, trade-offs, all that stuff. You can understand why last night in that first half it looked really disorganized. And then everything changed when the second half subs came in. RDP Busquets and Baltasar Rodriguez came in, and from that point on, Inter Miami was in virtually total control. DC United has a couple moments in transition, but it was brief, fleeting, and desperate. For the most part, Inter Miami was in control, and it was just a matter of were they going to be able to overturn a 1-0 deficit? Then they get the goal. Were they going to be able to get the winner? But there was never any doubt, I think, at that point that Inter Miami was going to dominate DC United for the rest of this game. And that's really what happened. We can start with that 64th minute wonder strike because that was something by Baltasar Rodriguez.
He tried it once, almost pulled it off. Then he tried it again, and this time it was absolutely brilliantly struck, straight with the laces, and it just curled straight into the corner. He's tried that a couple of times in every game that he's played. That long ranger and reminiscent of Matthias Rojas, but what a beautiful strike. I thought that was brilliant. Very, very difficult skill to pull off. So kudos to him for actually getting it accurate and absolutely right. Beautiful goal. Inter Miami needed a moment of magic to save themselves and lift themselves up. And that's exactly what he did. Great goal from him, and well done for him. Well done to him for his first Inter Miami goal.
Yeah, he had another one a couple minutes earlier, like his first touch of the game where he hits the side post. But that 64th minute one was something. And I don't think I gave it enough credit last night. It was one of the best goals of the season for Inter Miami. It was exceptional. And he deserves a lot of credit for that because that is the highlight of his year, of his Inter Miami career so far, clearly. But also, he could play another 10 years, and that still might be the highlight of his Inter Miami career. And then Inter Miami was just sort of poking and prodding. Virtually the rest of the game was played in DC United's half, aside from a couple transition opportunities. There was a moment in the 78th minute where Jacob Murrell gets going the other way. He scores, but it is called offsides. Ryan Saylor with a little bit of a flail at that moment. But really, it was Inter Miami poking and prodding, trying to figure out how to make this happen. They have a couple opportunities. Noah Allen has a shot that gets saved by the keeper. We had one sort of in the 92nd minute that kind of floats through. It might have skidded off the back of Ian Fray, but ultimately hits that post and comes out. And Inter Miami's not able to get the winner. When we've been so accustomed to them finding a way to get a winner in the Messi era, they didn't have one last night.
Yeah, we're actually missing one of those late winners. We haven't had one this season, I think. Maybe one, perhaps, but those last minute winners, we've not had
We had the
nearly
Fafa
enough
Pico
compared
one
to last
earlier this
season.
year against Atlanta.
Yes, yes, but that was, I think, to draw the game, right?
No,
No, that was
it
to
was the
win the
winner.
game.
Yeah.
And then we also had the Segovia against New York City
Yeah.
to draw the game. So we had a
He
couple. We've
also
had a
Segovia had one against Philadelphia on the road to
Yeah,
get an
okay, okay.
equalizer too.
I
We've
take
had
it
some.
back.
We've had some.
Yeah, we're just spoiled. No, I think Inter
There you
Miami in
go.
the second half was clearly better. Absolutely fantastic.
And then Chelo Wagon got us a winner like 3 weeks ago
Yeah,
against Atlas.
yeah,
You know what? We've had plenty of late winners.
yeah. Fair enough. Um, I hope my internet is fine because it's telling me my
You're fine.
internet is
You're fine.
quiet. Okay. So I thought it was a good game once the main players actually came on. The problem was there was a lot of prodding, but not a lot of poking. The XG stats suggest that we were below what DC had to offer. It was 0.64. So didn't I think at the time when I watched it, it felt like Inter Miami was definitely putting the pressure on. And you mentioned a few chances. There was another one that where the ball bobbled around in the box,
Yeah.
and we weren't able to capitalize it. So I think we did enough to try and get the winner. It was just not clinical at the end of the day. And maybe if we had a few more minutes here and there, we might have been able to get the winner, but it just wasn't meant to be. But I think we dominated that second half as soon as the subs came on.
And that's the thing is if you play like that regularly, the goals are going to flow in.
Yeah.
Especially if you have guys that are used to it. It's just when you bring them on with 35 minutes left, it's just a question of if you're going to score one, if you're going to score two. If you do that for 90 minutes, you're going to score three or four. You're going to win the game. So it's actually a style of soccer I'd like to see them play more. Let their defenders defend on islands. Trust that they're going to handle themselves and kind of put the pressure on and score multiple goals a game. But they just couldn't get it this game, and I think that happens sometimes.
One thing I've really liked about the second half, and perhaps we should have done this from the first whistle, is I like the mix of the younger players with the experienced players. Maybe if you'd put in a Sergio Busquets in the middle, the first half would have looked completely different. Maybe if you'd played Rodrigo de Paul for a little bit, the first half might have looked completely different. So instead of completely rotating the side, maybe there could have been a mix and match. But I understand why Javier Mascherano did what he did, and we complain about him not rotating enough. So when he does it, I think we should just give him credit for it. But I felt like there could have been some mix and match happening.
You know, it's funny. We had talked about this earlier in the season because there was one game where Jordi Alba sits, and it felt like a rotation type of sitting. And we thought, okay, maybe this is the difference between Tata and Mascherano is that Mascherano is going to rotate them one at a time and give them rest. And Tata was the type of player or type of coach that he liked to just put them all on at the same time or take them all off at the same time. And turns out we were wrong. They just were never coming out. And so, yeah, Inter Miami, not big on rotation. 2 times this year they've actually done this. One, a 4-3 loss at home to Dallas, and then last night, a 1-1 draw at DC United. That said, I still think the merit of rotating on a regular basis is maybe not full rotation, but a couple guys here and there on a more regular basis allows you to do this more effectively. So, yeah, I think it's fine. And it would have been great to get 3 points, but some of the results around us made it not that painful to drop a couple. So I think we're good on that end.
Yeah, I think it's a lesson learned about the depth of this team, how you need to prepare. You can't just ask players to come on cold and have a performance. So it's understandable. I'm not super mad at it. Slightly disappointed that we couldn't get the job done eventually, but it's okay. At least we didn't lose the game, salvaged a point at the end. And thankfully, the results went in our favor across the MLS, as you mentioned. Hopefully, Inter Miami can continue to keep pace with San Diego, Philadelphia, and Cincinnati. But we can just put this game behind us. There's more important games to look forward to. And I'm sure when we meet DC United again at Chase Stadium, this Inter Miami team is going to get all 3 points and get the job done.
Okay, ready to get to awards?
You don't want to talk about DC United?
No, I think anything I will
Fair
say
enough.
will come back to bite us in the second leg. No, they're at the beginning of a project, and I think
Yeah.
they are. They had about 7 guys injured last night, and we will see what they look
They
like
still
come
did better than we did.
2026.
So they did better than we did.
Yeah.
They had some good opportunities in that first half. Kojima is a really, really good player, and I like what I see from him. And that's about it, I guess. I think
So
Matty
awards.
Botola had a few good moments. Jackson Hopkins with a really good finish. But this is a DC team that's still in the process of building their project, and maybe next time they're slightly more dangerous, but hopefully next time we're going to have Messi on the pitch as well to take care of them. So that's about it. Let's get straight to awards now.
Okay, guys, if you haven't seen our post-game recaps before, we give out 6 awards after every game, a Heron of the match, Heron that flew north, and 2 individual awards each. So, because I'm a gentleman, I will let you go first. Who was the Heron of the match for last night's 1-1 draw against DC United?
There can only be one, and that one is Baltasar Rodriguez. Brilliant strike, game-changing moment, beautiful worldie. I thought overall as well, his performance looked positive, confident, and trying to do things, sometimes coming off, sometimes not coming off, but he was effective. And you talk about impact, you talk about moments. Baltasar Rodriguez created a moment that he's going to remember forever. His celebrations proved that he really enjoyed that, and the fans really enjoyed that as they should have. And a great game for him to get an impact and actually make a difference. The game drawing goals. So for me, that deserves the Heron of the match. And I didn't think that there was anybody else who had the same level of impact as he did.
100%. I don't think there was really much of a question mark here. We talked about the goal. It was fantastic. One for his career highlight reel, I am sure. He looked a little bit quicker than I think we've seen him in the past. But it also felt to me like he kind of ran out of gas after about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. So, and that's fine. I think he's gonna have to build that up if he becomes more of a guy that starts or something to that nature. So, I mean, this was a great start. Maybe this is the beginning of his Inter Miami career, if for all intents and purposes. I know he's made 6 or 7 appearances up to this point, but it's been a lot of 20-minute, 15-minute, not see him again for 3-week type of things. And so he hasn't been able to get a rhythm. Hopefully he gets a chance to really show out over the next couple of weeks. And maybe he has a big moment coming up on Wednesday night. And if that's the case, he could become an Inter Miami legend real quick if he does well over the next 7 days.
Yeah, and there's ways to kickstart your career, and this is definitely right up there as the best way to do that. So if that's the case, if that's the sign, then go for it, Baltazar. We're going to be rooting for you. I hope he gets an opportunity against Orlando. Of course, we've talked about how he can fit into this team. Just don't play Allende and play Baltazar instead, and we might have an actual impactful performance from him. He needs to make most of his minutes as much as he gets now because he's running out of time. He's obviously on a loan for Inter Miami, and going into the playoffs, the teams are going to be very set. And Javier Mascherano does not like to change his teams, of course. But there's one spot that's definitely up for grabs, and that's the Tadeo Allende spot. And if Baltasar Rodriguez can have more performances like this, I think he's going to be claiming that spot soon enough.
I think we have different opinions on what up for grabs means. I don't think anyone's dislodging Tadeo Allende as much as we would like for that to happen.
That's fair.
Okay. Heron that flew north. My turn to give it out. And you know what? There was a lot of options to pick from in this game. I have a lot of guys that I punch down on too frequently, and so I wanted to avoid that today. Yes.
First, you got to describe the award.
No, I was going to let you do it.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. So on this show, we give out 6 awards. We've already given out the Heron of the Match award. The other award that we give out is the Heron that flew north award. Florida herons do not fly north. In fact, they don't fly anywhere. So if you catch a Florida heron going anywhere, then that means they're doing the wrong thing. And in that vein, which of our herons did the wrong thing, Scotty, yesterday against DC?
It was Benha. Um, it was Benha. He just. It was like one of those days where he just drank the wrong potion for lunch, and he did everything wrong instead of everything right. And I don't want to kill the kid. We've seen him be an impactful player. We've seen him have good performances, and this wasn't one of them. That right side, I thought in tandem was pretty poor and kind of became a black hole for us. But specifically, Crema, he had some moments both in his own half, even entering the final third. There was a moment where Suárez kind of like has like a soft cross past everyone to Kremaski, and Kremaski has an opportunity to kind of whip it in or even put a cross back into Suárez, and he just like, it's not even that he hits it too hard, it's that he also hits it like 17 degrees the wrong way. It just goes straight out of bounds. It was just a poor game from him. He probably slept on the wrong side of the mattress in DC, and I think he needs to get a hair in that flew north for that performance, and then we move on.
I cannot argue with you on that one. I do think he was particularly poor, given that he's one of the senior players in that starting 11 who we expect to actually try to impact this game. I thought he was very meh. Did not do nearly enough to get on the ball, try to drive with the ball, try to connect the back line and the middle. Lost the ball a few times in dangerous positions. In front of goal was not nearly as effective as he usually can be, not putting in the right amount of crosses either. So overall, it was a very poor performance from Benha, but I think he's going to come back stronger. I just hope uh, there seems to be something behind the scenes with him and Javier Mascherano. I don't know, maybe not, but I hope that's not going to impact him and he
Did you
keeps his
guys
head down.
did you guys talk about that on the podcast? Because I know that was
We did.
last weekend.
We did talk about it during the podcast, and it was very it was telling. It was alarming and it was telling that a player goes on and says, I don't know where I'm going to play when I first get on the bus. Um,
What does
and
it
Javier
say?
Mascherano doubles down
But
on it.
but what does it say to you that he also is in the starting lineup at his preferred position in the very next game? I thought that was weird because I think when you look at any player sort of complaining about their role or minutes in the media, that's like you shouldn't be doing that, and
No,
that's on you,
not
Ben Ha.
publicly. Yeah.
But then the fact that he gets to start in his preferred position in the very next game,
It was
and
2 games
also
after.
no, it was the
So this
Galaxy
was
game.
no,
No, the
so this was
Galaxy
the
game,
Galaxy game where he complained before the Galaxy game.
and
Then you
then
had the Galaxy game.
he started as an 8 in the Galaxy game in the double pivot.
Oh, yes.
And so I just like it made me feel like, okay, Javier Mascherano had to like reprimand him publicly, but also behind the scenes, maybe he felt like, okay, I understand where you're coming from. Let's see what you got, kid. So I don't have an answer what that means, but I think it's kind of interesting that he does something he probably shouldn't do by complaining publicly, and then he's rewarded for it with the next game's start. Anyways, I know Redondo had just gotten traded or sold, and it was maybe something, I don't know, to do with that. But I just thought that was an interesting situation. Anyways, Heron that flew north. Can I ask you, what's your first individual award?
We are flying through this today. I am going to give out the Last of the Primes award. And this is a reference to Transformers if you watch the TV series or the movies or any of that, because I love it. It's great.
The last of the primes, I'm assuming, is Optimus Prime, who is the only Prime I know.
There were other primes, but yes, kind of.
Okay. He can be a truck. He's a leader. This is Noah Allen because he's the leader, and Noah Allen got the captain's armband last night. Bada boom, bada bang.
Well, it might be my fault. I think I misled you a little bit by saying Last of the Primes. Kind of, but not really. So the way I'm thinking about this is there was an old guard, right? The old guard of the Primes, if you want to call it. They weren't really the Primes, but there was an old guard before Messi. And after Messi, there's been a complete revamp of the squad, complete overturn of the players. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Ryan Saylor is the last of the lot who played in 2022 before Messi came on. There's not a single other player who's seen this club without Messi, except Ryan Saylor. And I wanted to give him an award regardless because I thought he was.
It's not true, but go ahead.
Ah, well, that just completely dispels my award. But I will say, I think the fact that he got a run out yesterday, this was his first start this season. He had another appearance off the bench, I believe, and I thought he was the best defender on the field for Inter Miami in terms of centre backs. The three centre backs that we had, he was the best. I really enjoyed his performance. The advanced stats liked him as well. He didn't do anything wrong as such. There were instances, of course, where he was burned for pace, but thankfully we got bailed out by the offside trap. And there was one moment where he was kind of doing the splits in the middle of the box. But I was like, you know what? You do you, Ryan Saylor. You do you. I thought it could have been much worse, but he handled himself very professionally and did very, very well. So last of the primes, kind of a false premise, but hey, you can forgive a guy, right?
I can definitely forgive you because the only players that have been around pre-Messi, aside from Ryan Saylor, are the kids that came out of the academy. So Noah Allen debuted 2022.
Yes, 23. Yeah.
Ian Fray also was pre-Messi, and so was Kermaski and David Ruiz. But all four of those guys were not acquired. They were sort of out of the academy. And so when you look at our transfer list or whatever, you're not seeing anybody pre-Messi, except for Ryan Saylor, who came out of the Super Draft, 9th overall pick. So he is certainly a member of the old guard, one of the longest tenured Inter Miami players at this point. And it was, I think, fun to see him get a chance and a run out last night. And by the way, I thought he was the best of the three. He had some sloppy moments in the first 15 minutes. He had a giveaway that led to a shot. But I thought he was much better after 15 minutes. And if a guy is going to take 15 minutes after not playing for 4 months to sort of get into the speed and rhythm of the game, I thought he handled it pretty well. And then that last moment right before he comes off, Jacob Murrell, who's offsides, I guess, so it didn't end up mattering, but maybe not his cleanest individual action. But I thought for like a solid 65 minutes there, he was the best defender by significant portion. And so, yeah, kudos to Ryan Saylor.
For someone who'd only played 4 minutes before this, I think he handled himself extremely well. And again, a great professional because he doesn't kick up a fuss about playing a lot more minutes, where I think he could go to a MLS team and actually get more minutes. And he always does a decent job whenever he's asked to. I still remember his performances from last season where I think he was asked to play as a right back and he had a last-ditch tackle one of the times. And I really like what he brings to this team, and good for him for stepping up when he was required to. I don't know if we see him again for the rest of the season, but hey, if this was his only performance, then it was very good.
Well, and he stepped up on the depth chart too because they didn't end up getting that extra center back. And so he went from 6th, I guess, early in the season to 5th. And I think your 5th center back, you probably would expect to get a couple appearances off the bench between now and the end of the season. So I think we might get another couple 6 or 7 minute appearances from him. But certainly I would be surprised if he gets another start. And so, yeah, I big fan of Ryan Saylor. Okay, I had a award. It's the Secrets of the Forbidden Fruit, and this is the what you get to taste if you don't only bring in Argentina players. It's the forbidden fruit of actual homegrown talent and non-Argentines, and you might actually find some nice secrets there. Okay, my first award is an old Western legend.
An old Western legend. An old Western legend says that, well, it's a cowboy-related theme. Who was the cowboy?
Legend-related.
Okay, legend-related. Well, there's only one legend in this team, and that's Rocco Rios Novo.
You're damn right it is. It's Rocco Rios Novo. I thought he looked fine. I thought he looked solid. The guy we saw in his first 3 or 4 games of the season looked shaky. He looked nervous. He looked temperate. He did not look like he was going to come out for very much. And now we've got a guy in goal that looks like a professional goalkeeper. And the days of us grading him on the third string curve, I think, are over. He does let in a goal. I don't think there was anything he could have done on it. He doesn't face a ton of shots, but he makes a big save on Kojima. And so I feel much more comfortable with him in goal than I would have a month ago, even. And I think he's maybe working his way into the lore of Inter Miami in an old Western style, because I can just picture him with a nice cowboy hat on.
And I think he would look like a cowboy as well, with his dash and his
Oh,
hairdo.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
What a long way we've come with him.
I know, right?
My goodness. To the point that he might just be the second best signing Javier Mascherano has made this transfer window. Potentially. After Segovia.
Him and Baltasar, right? Competing for it after
Yeah.
one game.
No, I agree with you. I thought that save was crucial. He didn't have much to do otherwise.
That was
but
a
I
great
think
save,
he's
too.
absolutely fantastic save. And he's growing in confidence. He doesn't seem as shaky anymore. He doesn't. It always used to feel like he doesn't know what he wants to do, and he was always caught between the devil and the deep sea at times, whether to come out for the crosses, whether to sweep the ball. And instead, he's now just turned into this really confident player who can command the back line, get a job done, make a good save or two. It's a wonder what some minutes can do to a player's confidence, right? So, good for him for stepping up. I think his current form is better than Nostari's current form. As simple as that. And on that, I would prefer him to start the game against Orlando than Nostari.
I wanted my awards to be positive, so there was a small number of players with which to pick from. But I did want to give Rocco one because he has really, like, in my head, he's come a long way. Okay, what is your second award?
I think you and I both went with the idea that we need to make these positive. So for me, the next award is the
God damn it.
Outrun the Luster Award.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Outrun the Luster Award.
Outrun the luster.
So you know
This
how
is a
it's
positive?
lackluster?
This
It
is
is
Rodrigo de
positive.
Paul because I was questioning whether he had the ability of Messi last night. And of course, upon reflection, I understand that that's silly. But the luster, you're wondering if it's shining off in my head. And I'm happy to report that it's not, but that's okay. I think it's still good to give Rodrigo de Paul an award.
No,
Boom,
it's not
nailed it.
Rodrigo de Paul. Try again.
Who gets it? Outrun the luster award. See, I feel like this is a star player that has
No.
lost some luster. Okay. I'm thinking about this wrong then.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Luster
Tell
can be
us.
shine. I mean, no, you're thinking about it like sort of right. But this goes to David Ruiz because he's outrunning that luster, you know? He's no longer lackluster. Oh,
Go ahead. Sorry.
I believe that's the, oh no, I have the wrong award. I got the wrong order. Okay, I'm going to rephrase all of that. Forget about the fact that that happened.
Dude,
and
you
we're
can
gonna
give David
away-
Ruiz the reward. It's fine.
No,
I wasn't going to
no,
give
no,
David
no.
Ruiz an award, so it's okay.
My other award is even better though. So can I give that other award? Oh,
Sure.
we might need to explain to the viewers how this actually works because our graphics department did definitely get it right, but it was me who got it wrong. So in that vein, I'm gonna give the Squeaky Wheels Award, and that's not positive at all.
Okay, let's stop.
Uh,
Let's just take a pause. Let's go
Thank
back to
you.
David Ruiz for a minute, and let's talk about David Ruiz. He's getting an award for this evening. I thought he was solid. I thought he took about 10, 15 minutes to get into the game. Also, he was having trouble finding an outlet for himself. But it was, I don't know, it's hard for me to judge him based on not having played since legitimately our trip to Jamaica back in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, second round.
The premise for that award is that he was definitely getting better as the game progressed. You could see it. You could see that he had a little bit of like shine issues. He was a little rusty, and then as he was playing into the game, he sort of polished himself up. He outran the luster and was actually able to, I think, get into the game, get involved a lot more. There was one moment where he carried the ball really well, created an opportunity, and a couple of other moments as well where he was well positioned, doing some good stuff. But overall, I thought he had a very positive, growth into the game. And I think he's going to be an important piece going into the playoffs.
You know, I feel bad for David Ruiz because a lot of people don't respect him a ton necessarily because they weren't paying attention back in 2023 when he had his breakout. But I remember what David Ruiz looked like when he was one of the starting midfielders, and he's certainly an MLS caliber player. And so to have a guy like that not taking up a huge roster chunk, being available, like I think that's a nice piece to have in your midfield, especially in sort of rotated games. But he needs to play more in order to get the best out of him. And that's not necessarily meaning he needs to start every game, but he needs to be in that rotation where he either gets 10 minutes off the bench every other game or he's getting a start every third week or something like that. But that's just not Mascherano's style. Okay, the Squeaky Wheels Award, your official second award. And I'm guessing it goes to Chelo Weigant because I see his little picture there.
You're guessing absolutely right.
Okay, maybe we should explain. Here's what we do. We pick a Heron of the match, and we tell each other who the Heron of the match is going to be, because then we don't have to think of an award for that player. We do the same with the Heron that flew north, and then we each come up with a couple awards, and we send them in order to our third person who does the graphics, and they order them in the graphics so that we don't have to worry about sort of updating the graphics while we're live. But in order for that to work, you have to stick to the order that you submit to the graphics department, and Saur did not do that, which is why we have the confusion here. But instead, we get the squeaky wheels from Chelo. Talk to me about Chelo Weigant in this game.
That one's
and what's the award?
My pay cut.
What's the award?
It's the Squeaky Wheels Award. Have you heard the phrase that the squeaky wheel gets the grease?
Okay.
That means like the wheel that's the worst of the lot needs to get the grease and be polished. He was awful. He needs to go take a shower in Greece because I thought he was very lackluster. He was very poor, and I did not enjoy his performance at all. If Benner hadn't had a stinker, I would have probably given it to Chelo Weigant. I didn't like him at all. Somebody said that I always jump on an opportunity to criticize Chelo Weigant. That's probably true. But then he just gets burnt by a player like Kijima, and you're thinking to yourself, if he can't handle himself against this person, how is he going to deal with everything that Orlando is going to throw at him on Wednesday? I think you think that Ian Fray is going to start as right back on Wednesday. I don't think so. I think Chelo Weigant's going to start. And that's really scary to me.
I'd be shocked.
I didn't think he was particularly great. On that side with Lujan, both of them they're constant chaos, and it's not fun to watch. And somebody needs to give him the grease so that he can actually get back to the good player that we think he is.
No, he's taken a major step down defensively since the Club World Cup. And it's almost inexplicable other than he hurt himself at some point and he's been trying to play through something. And so if he is, like, kudos, especially when Ian Fray was out and we didn't really have any other options. But Ian Fray is a much better defender. He's a much better attacker. He's a much better transition player. He's a much better ball progressor. Like, there's no way if Ian Fray's not starting, I'm not even going to entertain the idea. Ian Fray's going to start right back on Saturday. And I agree with you. I thought Chelo was really poor in this game. And I think it becomes more pronounced when he's on a side with another player that's also giving you nothing, which is what's happened a lot lately with Tadeo Allende and in this game with Kramaski. He would have been my second choice for Heron that flew north. And that's it. I want to get back to the positives.
Sure, go on.
Okay, my last award is the Weapon X Award.
The Weapon X Award goes to, let me see who we haven't given an award to. And well, the Weapon X Award goes to Sergio Busquets. And this is obviously a reference to Wolverine. And it's also because he's an X factor that nobody else can actually do the job that he does. And as soon as he came on, the game was completely different. He controls the midfield, and he's a Weapon X in the middle of the park.
My choice is A, not Busquets, B is an X factor, and C is a weapon if used as a weapon. And of course, it goes to Ian Fray.
Of course.
Ian Fray came on in the 79th minute, and I saw him get ready, and I thought, oh, there's no doubt. We got this now. And then I saw the board go up, and it was Ryan Saylor coming out instead of Cello. And I just thought to myself, this guy is a game-changing difference maker as an attacking fullback. And you need a goal. And you put him on a center back where he has the least freedom to actually be a weapon or an X factor. Now, he still was able to create something even as a center back. But I have been asking for a year and a half now for both Tata Martino and now Javier Mascherano to use this guy as an offensive substitution at fullback, because he will change your game offensively if you just bring him off the bench and let him do his thing. And that's what last night's game called for. I was for 20 seconds thinking that my ask had finally been answered by Javier Mascherano. And then it got pulled away from me, and Ryan Saylor came off the field. I've always wanted him to be a weapon off the bench because he absolutely changes the way a team goes forward. And when you need a spark off the bench, you need a catalyst that can change everything. And it blows my mind that these coaches don't see him in that role doing that. And even last night, it didn't happen. He's a weapon. He's an X factor. Give him the opportunity to be a weapon and X factor, even if it's off the bench.
It's so funny because he still somehow found his way on the right-hand side, and he still somehow managed to be a little bit effective there. And I was thinking to myself, you do you, Ian Fray. You do you, because you deserve it. I 100% agree with you. I think I don't want to say it's misprofiling, but there's a way that you can really use Ian Fray, and there's no way that just the two of us, a bozo and a knucklehead, have figured this out, right? Somebody else in that coaching staff also knows this. The data absolutely shows this. He can get involved in the final third and actually make a difference, because honestly, he could even play as a winger at times if you need him to. He'd be a great wing back if he had the endurance and the durability. But without that, as a right back, he can play so well because he can carry the ball. He can play with the ball at his feet. He has a good pass or two in him as well. So there's no reason to just put him in center back and let him do his job. And that, for me, looked like a very predetermined substitution, not based on how the game state was going.
I don't think so. I think Ryan Saylor had that moment with Jacob Merle where he kind of falls over. And I think Javier Mascherano said, okay, I think Ryan Saylor might be gassed out.
Yeah.
But still, it's go win the game. Put Cello at center back for real. And let Ian Fray go play as an offensive weapon. I don't get it.
It's a good award, though, and I agree with you on this. He is an offensive weapon when used accurately, but unfortunately yesterday he wasn't used that way. It's just a part and parcel of being an Inter Miami fan at this point, where we want the coach to do something and he doesn't do it for us, which is fair. He gets paid the big bucks. We're just sitting on a podcast talking about it, so can't hold it against Javier Mascherano. Oh, we can. Maybe we can. We definitely
and we
can.
will.
We will. As you can see by the awards.
Yeah. I have one more award that was negative, and I was saving it for last just in case I needed it. It's the Expose Award. And it really goes to 3 players, actually 5 players. And that's why I was going to save it for last. Telasco Segovia, Gonzalo Lujan, Chelo Weigant, Tadeo Allende. Let's stick to those 4. Those guys start every game, basically, or at least a ton. They start a ton. Those are the guys that should come into this game ready to lead. And I thought the fact that it was so disjointed was, like almost everyone else I can kind of let off the hook. Those 4 I'm pretty disappointed in. I know we don't personally have high expectations for Chelo Weigant or Gonzalo Lujan or even a Tadeo Allende at this point. Maybe a little bit higher for Segovia. But again, this is the worst team in the league. And those guys looked like they belonged on the exact same pitch as the worst team in the league. So I think that's a pretty damning statement when you think about it like that. And of course, as soon as the big guns come on, everyone looks better. But I think that kind of shows us that those guys aren't even as good as they look when the big guns are on. And they're maybe a step below that, but that Lionel Messi raises everyone's game. And Luis Suárez and Sergio Busquets and Roger, they raise everyone's game. And so those guys look better than they even actually are because those guys are on the field with them. But that when you take it down to sort of even playing ground, they're even worse than they normally seem. So I didn't think Allende looked much different. I didn't think I think it was disappointing from Segovia.
Yeah.
But same with Lujan and Cello. Like, those guys look like they belonged on DC United in this game.
Instead of lifting the team up, they went down to the level of DC and played the game at their level, which
I just think that was their level because they look the same as they always play. I think especially for Lujan and Cello and Allende, they looked just like they always look. They didn't look worse than any other time. So I think that goes to show you what those guys are. And I think when you're from Miami's front office, you got to look really deeply at those guys who are making a lot of money and are performing like they belong on one of the worst teams in the league. So, yeah. All right, I'm ready to get back to the positive.
I completely agree with you on this. And it's a sad state that against the bottom team that's basically given up on the season, even our B team wasn't able to perform the way we wanted them to perform. And a statement of where we are at with this roster as a whole. Hopefully, Javier Mascherano going forward uses them a little bit more and doesn't use this as an excuse to say, listen, I don't have the players, and if I play them, we're not going to get the results. He needs to look at himself as well on this and realize that you need to allow them to play together without some of the superstars to build that chemistry, and then mix and match between the superstars and the role players. That's what we haven't done, and that's what's disappointing. And that was my biggest takeaway from this game.
Yeah. Okay, let's get to a couple other things. This is the Eastern Conference table, and I'm sorry if you're listening on audio and you can't see it. Inter Miami, because of a San Diego draw last night against Portland and an FC Cincinnati loss last night to Nashville. FC Cincinnati got whooped 4-0. Actually, it might have been 4-1 at the end, but actually, it may have been 5-1 at the end. Anyways, not relevant. They still control their destiny to the Supporters' Shield. If they win all their games in hand, they will top the league, but the margin is pretty narrow. Philadelphia takes the top spot. They have 8 points on Inter Miami and only 3 games in hand. So it's getting tight. And by the way, not that we're really worried about this, but they're closer to missing the playoffs right now. 7 points above the Chicago Fire than they are to Philadelphia, where they're 8 points behind. Of course, they have games in hand, so that's maybe an unfair way to phrase that. But this is a very tight Eastern Conference. 2 points last night could be the difference between second seed and third seed, right? And over the course of the season, those points are going to matter. And I think it's important now that we're getting into this part of the season that we keep an eye on the table in a way that we really haven't had to do for several years, because last year we were just running away with it for most of the second half of the season. And the year before that, we were kind of a prayer away from even making the playoffs. And of course, we finished third from bottom in the table. So it's been a long time since we've had every game really kind of shifts the balance of what our outlook looks like. We're only 1 point behind Orlando City for fourth, 1 point above Columbus for sixth, 2 points above both Charlotte and NYCFC for eighth. And so it's important. And there's still kind of a big gap between us and Philadelphia. So they got to win games. They probably can afford maybe 1 or 2 more games like this where they drop points that they should get, but they can't. They don't have a ton of games that they can drop points on without affecting their seeding for the playoffs.
If we'd won that 2 Orlando City games, this would be a completely different picture. And I think Inter Miami of last season would probably be on top with 3 games in hand. That's just how it's been this season. So if you win the game yesterday, if you win the 2 games against Orlando, you make it, you literally are sitting on top. But that's a what if hypothetical scenario, and that's understandable. We're not the same team. The East is not the same. there's a lot of competition in and around. So you have to be careful, man. You can't afford too many slip ups like yesterday. Yesterday is understandable, disappointing, but understandable. But you got to get going. I think there's 7 games left now. And I think 7 games left, 10 games left, maybe in the MLS. You got to stop picking up the points and getting the results. Otherwise, you are in danger of slipping away from the top, and you don't want to do that.
Hold on one second. I'm trying to find out how many points they had after 25 games last year.
I think it might have been very similar. We've definitely lost more games than we did last season. I think last season we only lost 4. We've already lost 5 games this season. So, but regardless, to your point about how this table looks like,
I think
there's
they had
a lot
53
happening
points.
in the East.
53 points last year, so they're quite far behind.
In the same number of games?
I think so. Anyways, I did quick math there, so I don't want to put my reputation on my ability to do quick math on camera. But we'll leave it at that. What I do want to say, and we haven't really talked about this yet, is the Eastern Conference is very competitive. Again, we're only 2 points above NYCFC in 8th place. There's a chance that you could miss the playoffs with like 48 points this year if you're the Chicago Fire, the New York Red Bulls.
That's wild.
Which is wild because normally 40 points gets you in. It wouldn't be sort of out of the realm of possibility for 50 points to be the last place team or to maybe miss the playoffs on goal differential or something like that, which is sort of an unheard of level of competition in this league. So it's tough, and Inter Miami's got to get those points when they can get them, and last night was a missed opportunity. Okay, let's move on to Wednesday night, because if they win Wednesday night, this game means virtually nothing. And if they lose, then we're going to be very upset they wasted an opportunity to get 2 extra points in this game. They play Orlando City, and it's apparently a pretty big game at Chase Stadium Wednesday night for the Leagues Cup semifinal, a chance to go to the final on Sunday, and also a chance to clinch a CONCACAF Champions Cup berth. I think last night telegraphed exactly what we're going to see in the starting 11 for Wednesday night. I think Luis Suárez is going to start at the number 9. I think if Messi is available, he will start as his partner up top as that second striker. Rodrigo de Paul, Yannick Bright, Sergio Busquets, and Talasco Segovia. If Messi's not available, Tadeo Allende. That back line looks like it's going to be Ian Fray at right back, Noah Allen at left back if Jordi Alba's not healthy, Jordi Alba if he is, and then probably Maxi Falcone partnered with Gonzalo Lujan at center back, and then Ustari in goal. They're rested. They should be able to go win this game at home, except Orlando City's kicked our butt twice already. So how are we feeling?
There is no excuse to lose to Orlando thrice this season. Absolutely none. The biggest problem is they've not just beaten us twice, they've whooped us twice. And looks like they have their number. And you can't play the same way as you did against them in those last 2 games. The game plan was all off. The performances were all off. The heads dropped. That can't happen again, can it? Surely not, because we're never going to hear the end of it. And the fact that that win could mean that we end up going to the CONCACAF Champions Cup is huge. A loss would mean that Orlando gets in is awful. No, you got to win that game on Wednesday. And you can get forgiven for the previous 2 results against Orlando City. The rest they should be able to do this, and there's no excuse. Sorry.
Both of Inter Miami's first 2 games against Orlando City, they came out with an unusually attacking posture.
Yep.
I hope we see something more defensive in this game. We've talked about time and time again, defense can win you these types of trophies. If they can keep a clean sheet, they're going to go to the final. I think Messi will be back. I don't know if he'll start or if he'll come off the bench, but I think he will play. And I kind of think he'll start. But that's just speculation. They got to win this game, man. This is a must-win kind of game for Inter Miami over the course of this season.
Biggest game of our season, maybe?
No, but if they win, it might be the best win. I don't know. It's going to be hard to beat that Porto win, but
the consequences for this are a lot more, though. right? It's not just a berth in the finals, it's a CONCACAF Champions Cup spot, which is huge.
No, yeah, it's right up there for sure. It's
Yeah.
right up there for sure. This is a huge game, and like Inter Miami can't lose this game without they can't lose this game. So I'm gonna just have blind faith that because they can't, they won't, and we will leave it at that. So, any final thoughts for this episode before we wrap it up?
No, this was a bit of a non-factor game, disappointing, but hey, sometimes these results happen. We talked about a trap game. This was definitely a trap game. Well done to DC for getting something out of this, but Inter Miami needs to just move on to the next game now, and as long as we can beat them, and by them I mean Orlando, this is going to be forgotten. That is the next goal. Beat Orlando City on Wednesday, and we can celebrate and celebrate hard. That's all I have for you, man. Beat Orlando.
All right, guys. We'll be back Wednesday, 1 hour before kickoff for a very important game against Orlando City. It is Inter Miami's potentially last chance to paint the state pink. And boy, would that be a heck of a win. Maybe we'll get some penalty luck on our side if possible. But until then, guys, I hope you have a lovely week. Enjoy your evening, and we will see you guys next time. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. Since our first viewer, sharing this with you all has been the very best part. So from the beginning until the end, thank you for being a part of this, and have a wonderful day.